Item 1, Teresa, can you please do the roll call?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Anscombe? Councillor Ashby?
Present.
Councillor Askew? Councillor Atterwill?
Present.
Councillor Bambridge?
Here.
Councillor Bate?
Present.
Councillor Annie Blackburn?
Here.
Councillor David Blackburn? Councillor Borrett?
Present.
Councillor Bowles? Councillor Brindle?
Here.
Councillor Marion Chapman-Allen?
Present.
Councillor Sam Chapman-Allen?
Here.
Councillor Clark?
Here.
Councillor Clausen?
Here.
Councillor Cogman?
Here.
Councillor Cowan?
Here.
Councillor Crane?
Present.
Councillor Duffield? Councillor Eagle?
Here.
Councillor Fraser?
Here.
Councillor Gilbert? Councillor Harvey?
Present.
Councillor Hewitt?
Here.
Councillor Hunter-Clark?
Here.
And Councillor Hussey?
Present.
Councillor Cadell?
Here.
Councillor Kiddle-Morris?
Here.
Councillor Kybird?
Here.
Councillor Land?
Present.
Councillor McCambridge? Councillor Monument? Councillor Morton? Councillor Nunn?
Here.
Councillor O'Callaghan?
Present.
Councillor Oliver? Councillor Plummer? Councillor Richmond? Councillor Suggett?
Present.
Councillor Samantha Taylor?
Here.
Councillor Sarah Taylor? Councillor Taylor? Councillor Terry? Councillor Turner? Councillor Webb? Councillor Westman?
Here.
Councillor Wickerson?
Here.
Councillor Wilkin? And Councillor Wilkinson.
Here.
Thank you, Chairman.
Teresa, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've received apologies from Councillor Duffield, Councillor Gilbert, Councillor McCambridge, Councillor Oliver, Councillor Plummer, Councillor Terry, Councillor Webb and Councillor Wilkin.
Are there any further apologies?
Thank you. Councillor Askew may be late, but he's hoping to attend.
We'll move on then to the minutes. Are members happy to agree the minutes of the annual meeting held on the 22nd of May, found on pages 5 to 18 of your agenda pack?
Just one very small amendment, page 17, on political appointments to committees, Reform UK Group, it should read, on Licensing Committee, Councillor Robin Hunter-Clark to be removed and replaced with Councillor Tina Cadell. Just one very small amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunter-Clark. So are we happy with that amendment? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Item 3, declarations. Have any members any interest to declare?
I declare an interest in item 8 as Director of Green Energy Technologies. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4, Chairman's announcements. I'm really pleased that representatives of my charities are here to share with you a short presentation on the great work that they do within our communities. If I could please ask Emily to come up first from Chapel Green School.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. I'm Emily Seven, I'm head teacher at Chapel Green. I've been head teacher for the last 4 years. I've actually been with the school 15 years though, starting off as their early years leader. We moved to our new site from Attleborough to Old Buckenham in 2018, in January 2018, with 68 students. We now have 194 students on roll for September. Our school is growing exponentially in line with the need for SEN places across Norfolk and the country. We cater for students with the highest levels of need, right through to high functioning autistic children. So we have a huge range of students within the school, all needing very different provisions. We run 4 pathways within our school, which allows students to have the full access to the best curriculum we can possibly give them, and allows them all to achieve their potential in whatever way they are able to. We have over 124 teaching and support staff in the school, and an additional 15 clerical and site staff, keeping our site ticking and running very well in the background. We are always very grateful for anyone who is happy to raise money for us, as all schools are you know, in tight situations at the minute, but we are looking to, we have filled every classroom, every space in our school already, and we are looking to put a sensory cabin outside for our students to use. A lot of them need what's called sensory circuits to help them regulate their emotions and their behaviours, and we want to create a specialist area just for that. And we're also very keen, we've had to lose our life skills room, so we're again raising money to put in a life skills flat on the school site, but actually away from the building, so it's somewhere they actually have to go to, so that our students can learn some of those really valuable life skills, which we do teach, but it's much easier if you can actually teach making a bed in a house or a little flat with a bed in it, as opposed to here's a put up bed we've put up in the classroom, which never looks quite as great. So those are our sort of goals for fundraising this year, and we are very, very grateful to Councillor Taylor for choosing us as one of her charities this year.
Thank you so much, Emily. If I could now ask Gary from Nelson's Journey to come up and do the same, please.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you everybody for inviting me here this morning as well to just tell you a little bit about Nelson's Journey. It's a charity proudly based in Norfolk. It's been going for 27 years now. A lot of people know the name Nelson's Journey, being a Norfolk charity, but not a lot of people know exactly what Nelson's Journey do. In a way, that's a good thing, but in a way it isn't for spreading awareness. So Nelson's Journey is a children's bereavement charity. We help and support children in Norfolk up to the age of 18 when they suffer a bereavement of somebody very close to them. It doesn't have to be a family member, it's just somebody that's quite close and special to them. Sadly, in a lot of cases, it could be mum or dad, or brother and sister. It could be a direct relation. It could be somebody that works in a school. It could be anybody in that child or young person's life up to the age of 18 that is special to them. We use one-to-one therapeutic sessions with the children. We have sessions with all the children together. As part of our fundraising, where some of our money goes for the fundraising, we take them on activity weekends to various locations and get them together. So they know with the child that they're not alone. This doesn't happen to just that person. It happens to other children and young people as well. It's so important with grief and with death, because people think if it just happens to them, they're very alone, they're very vulnerable as well. The charity's mission is to help those children and young people to the best of their ability and let them live their best life possible. Thank you as well for any fundraising that you can do. We are mentioned as quite a large charity, but there's 14 people in total to cover the whole of Norfolk. A lot of those are part-time people as well. It's a big job. We're not directly government funded in any way, so all the funding that we do is funded by ourselves to keep the charity going and obviously keep the mission for the children and young people. So thank you for your time, and if anyone does have any questions, I know my contact details are around here and I'd be very glad to talk to them one-to-one or on email. So thank you for the time, Councillor, and thank you for your support.
Thank you, Gary. You'll all notice I didn't tell you to turn your mobile phones off earlier onto silent, so if we can be donating to my charities from the get-go today. I'm really excited to be raising money for these charities during my time as chairman, and through that I hope you'll all support me. And if you have any harebrained money raising schemes, no jumping out of aeroplanes, but I am open to other suggestions. I'll also be having my civic service on Sunday the 27th of July at St Mary's Church in Attleborough, and for as many of you that can attend, everybody is welcome and I'd love to see you there. Thank you. Leaders' announcements. Sam?
Lovely, thank you very much, Chairman, and good morning, colleagues, and welcome to our work experience students who are at the back of the chamber who are joining us this week to understand the variety of important vital services being delivered across local government and how it's a fantastic career, and I hope they all pursue that as they move forward. Chairman, there are a couple of areas I want to pick up, but first of all, as always, is the hot topic within the local government family is local government reorganisation. We continue to work on a really ambitious timetable set out by government, and we still are working collectively across the six district councils in Norfolk. We're formally appointed in a circle to do our consulting work, moving along us at pace to give it that hyper-local level for those three individual offers, while ensuring we have a strategic, strong business case for why Norfolk deserves three unitary councils moving forward, ensuring that local government truly does remain local. I need to remind colleagues that this is a really important part of what we're trying to achieve. We have a really clear timetable set out, we have a clear requirement set out by government, and thus far we are meeting that successfully. And I want to thank all members of this council for your forbearance, your patience and your support. You'll see today that we have fly posted the council chamber for our future Norfolk activities. There are some packs out in the foyer which would encourage all members to take to distribute to your parish, town councils or key stakeholders over these coming weeks while we're continuing that conversation. We really want to ensure that we're designing this with our residents and our communities front and centre. This is an opportunity to redesign the whole of local government services. So often we all get frustrated, whether it's us or someone else. This is a chance for us to iron out those creases and ensure we put local government front and centre, but more importantly, the services our residents value day in, day out. As we move forward, Chairman, we'll be bringing back to Council, as we've done previously, through over scrutiny, and just thank the Chairman of the Scrutiny for his support and the Commission to make sure that you understand the work we're undertaking, both the data set and some of our requirements we're meeting in that timeline to ensure that all members of this Council have the opportunity to shape what that looks like. On top of that, Chairman, I will commit continuously, myself and Councillor Borrett, to be available to any parish or community or business across the district to come and meet with them and explain what LGR and devolution means. Chairman, as we move forward, though, we see some greater change within the services our residents value. This week, we've seen the NHS 10-year plan being announced by government. It's a really strong position for the government to take. However, I think it vehemently misses the opportunities around what local government reorganisation could offer. You'll have seen recently that the Integrated Care Board has moved from a Norfolk and Waveney position to a whole of Norfolk and Suffolk, removing that oversight for local government and local leaders to be able to shape what the NHS looks like at a real hyper place-based level. We need to ensure that when government talk about neighbourhood health services and community neighbourhood boards and health centres in every community, that local government is that voice for all of our residents and ensuring that the NHS delivers what our residents need at the right time, at the right place. And Chairman, therefore, it's really important that all of us understand what devolution offers. With devolution moving forward and health being part of that new framework, we need to ensure that we have a strong local government voice within devolution. And that's why the model of three is so important, ensuring that we have three councils sat round that table for Norfolk, three in Suffolk, allowing that mayor to have the ability to shape what the outcomes for all of our residents across the county of Norfolk and Suffolk. And Chairman, the preventative agenda goes much beyond that. You'll have seen today the work the Chairman's doing by highlighting some of the fantastic organisations we have in our district. This council is immensely proud of our Inspiring Communities programme. This council committed £1.2 million at the start of this council's term to ensure that our communities are front and centre, supporting services where sadly the NHS and others have maybe had to step back, but where we are taking an active interest to ensure that we're supporting everybody across our district, but more importantly, some of our most vulnerable residents who haven't had that support previously. And Chairman, a bit closer to home, I'm really pleased this weekend we've got the Thetford Festival of Punjab, and I hope many of you will be in the town supporting that incredible activity. I'm very pleased that we're able to support that through our Inspiring Communities, providing a grant to ensure that can go from strength to strength. As we continue our work in Thetford, we're now moving forward with our 20 million Towns Fund through our Neighbourhood Boards programme. We're now starting that engagement to ensure that we lock that in for that, once again, tight timeline to have submitted by November back into government for that final sign-off. The Neighbourhood Boards programme shows once again how Breckland is putting residents front and centre. We work with residents across the district to deliver our future Breckland plans, and Thetford had its own future Thetford plan, which we're using as our position from Breckland to work with others, such as the Town Council, the County Council, and other key stakeholders, youth, business, the voluntary sector, education, to ensure that we're trying to shape what we think are important while allowing them to do exactly the same. whilst overarching that umbrella and making sure that residents are engaged and they get the chance to shape what that £20 million looks like. Beyond that, Chairman, I'm pleased that most recently we've seen the Arch Youth Hub opened up in Attleborough. This is a commitment from Breckland Council for our Market Towns initiative and using some of our Rural Prosperity Fund to work in conjunction with the Town Council and others to deliver youth and SEND provision within the town, where it's very much lacking. It shows where the public purse is able to directly intervene to deliver vital services to so many, and I know it's already made a really positive impact. Open every Monday, Wednesday and Thursday, provided those tailored sessions for children with special educational needs and disabilities, work with parents and carers, and the facility is being used by Attleborough Boxing Club outside of these normal times. A real community hub, Breckland Council working in partnership with others, enabling those activities. And my sincere thanks, Chairman, goes to the Benja Foundation who operate in this centre, but as well as some really key businesses, Hopkins Flooring, Electric 11, Edmonds Electrical, Dodds Road Store and Your Workspace for their generous contribution, both of time and materials, showing real community spirit. And finally, Chairman, just most recently flipping back to Thetford, I was really pleased that we were able to deliver with with the Football Foundation and Parkwood Leisure a brand new 3G facility. As we said before, and I know we had questions from Councillor Terry previously, thank you to my right, around what this provision was going to look like. This was a data-led activity from the Football Foundation, telling us where those greater opportunities led and where we needed to ensure that grassroots sport was available for everybody. The impact has already been felt. In the first month, we've seen a 250% increase in the number of people using our facilities compared to the previous AstroTurf. This is 1,500 individuals. This is an incredible effort, and I hope to be able to roll this across other places such as Attleborough as we begin to move forward our leisure provision within that locality. And I'm happy to take any questions under item 7, Chairman, on this or any other business. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 6, questions on notice. Do we have any? We had 3. Oh yeah, there were 3. They were received and published, and everyone should have those responses in your agenda pack. So we'll move straight on to questions without notice. Questions to be directed to the leader, relevant portfolio holder or committee chairman. Are there any questions? Councillor.
Hi, my question is to Councillor Crane. Morning. So road verges are and can be an abundant wildlife-rich nature reserve. I've looked different stats, but I think at a minimum covering a total area larger than the Lake District. Norfolk County Council state that the roadside verges are cut for safety reasons and can you still hear me without the squeak? For safety reasons and not appearance, and Breckland states the grass cutting is carried out across the district throughout the year according to a planned schedule. Are you able to share and explain the schedule and any criteria about how the verges are cut? As residents in different areas are saying they see differences in the verges, which may be due to the council, but also, you know, there might be some differences within. And how can there be a more consistent approach that maximises biodiversity? Thank you.
My word, that was a long question, but I will answer as best as I can. Some of it I will have to answer you at a later date. As you know, we used to cut a lot of the grass on behalf of Norfolk County Council, and I think it was probably 3 years ago now that they took that contract back, and we only now cut the pieces of grass that belong to Breckland Council. What the schedule is for that and what the differential is, I don't know, but can I get back to you on that, please?
Councillor Attewell, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. My question is for Councillor Borrett. Norfolk County Council have published a report stating that Breckland Council's preference for 3 unitary councils in Norfolk would be the most expensive for council taxpayers. Is this true? And if so, why do you think this would be a price worth paying?
Morning, Councillor Attewell. Thank you very much for your question. I have seen the report. What we haven't seen and what I don't recognise is the supporting documentation that underlines that assertion. And we are busy with our consultants and the other district councils in Norfolk working through those their documents. But I do believe, and certainly the evidence that I've seen to date would suggest that the option for 3 is going to be, how can I put it, is not as outlined by the County Council. Thank you.
Councillor Hunter-Clark, do you have any questions?
I do, thank you, Madam Chairman. Further to my question on notice relating to the property leasing scheme, I believe this matter would be best addressed to the leader. In light of concerns raised by many residents of Breckland, could you please provide a clear assurance to this council and to our communities that none of the leased properties, which you've spent £176,000 on, I believe, in the last financial year, nor any council-owned temporary accommodation will be used to house ex-offenders or illegal migrants? Will you please give me that assurance today to offer certainty and peace of mind to the people we represent? Thank you.
So what I hope, Councillor Hunter-Clark, is you're not saying that anybody who's an ex-offender is not entitled to accommodation provided by a local authority. I think that's very much an inappropriate position for you to want to take, and it's not a position this council will take. This council will house anybody who's entitled to have housing and meets the requirement as laid down for our housing policy. If an individual is granted asylum in this country and applies to us for temporary accommodation as homeless, then we will provide them that accommodation. As you're aware, anybody who's an asylum seeker is provided that accommodation through the Home Office, not the District Council. The District Council is a liaison with the Home Office, and those contracts provide that accommodation if required. You'll be aware that there are schemes such as the Syrian, Hong Kong and Afghan dispersal scheme, which this council does take a direct active role in and provide that accommodation across the district.
Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a question for Councillor Cowan, please. Could you comment, Phil, on Radio Norfolk's assertion that Breckland District Council has a 10 million council tax debt?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I was intrigued by that particular assertion myself, and I think it behoves us all really to understand what is meant by that question. Debt is not necessarily the right definition of what they're referring to. Firstly, this council, like all district councils, is a collection agency, and we collect on behalf of the County Council, Police and Crime Commissioner, parish councils, town councils, etc. And if you sort of hark back to the way we have described how we apportion the council tax we take, and look at our little pie chart, I think it's 5p in every pound comes to this council to start with. So to assert that there's £10 million, or whatever figure it may be, is totally inappropriate, because we only take 5% of that retained for this council. What I can say is that, and this applies to probably most people, if not all in this room, who don't pay their council tax in full on day one when the bill lands on the mat. We actually pay in monthly instalments, and they're called arrears. So yes, at the first instance when council tax bills land, everybody who doesn't pay the full amount owes the council another 10 months, 9 months, 8 months as the year goes on in council tax. It's called arrears, it's perfectly normal, and it's how we and other district councils function. What I will say is that there are those in society, regrettably, who take a different view and believe they shouldn't pay any council tax at all, or in fact, they take a view that they will do different things in a different way. And I also say that through Anglia Revenue's partnership, I'm really pleased that we hold those people to account. And across the whole of ARP last year, in year 24-25, we collected £4.4 million of fraudulent claims. And for Breckland residents, that amounted to getting back £583,000 of money that people chose not to pay to support the services which we provide. And as we've said, we provide incredibly good services for a very good value for money. And it's absolutely right that those people who choose not to follow that are held to account. So no, I don't recognise the £10 million at all. At any one moment in time, that figure, whatever it is, will vary month to month to month, because as I say, they're called arrears, and that's the way the system works. Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. My question's directed to the Deputy Leader, Councillor Sarah Suggett. I was very pleased to see the award of £32,500 to the Council in July from the Ministry of Housing and Local Government. And this is to continue the very important work on the damp and mould project work in the private rented sector. I do note, however, this is only work for an additional year. Appreciate you may need to write them in some of these points, but I'm looking for is that can you provide assurance that you'll be able to target all landlords and tenants in that time, in that year? That what are your plans after that funding ceases? And also appreciate you may need to write where you see the balance of that work in information, education or enforcement activity. And if you can also now or going forward, tell us how many enforcement notices you've issued, and does this project also include social housing providers? And finally, will you ensure, I think as you have done before, is keeping ward members informed about any enforcement activity in their areas? Obviously, it's a complete disgrace in 2025 that some landlords and property owners are not meeting basic standards. Thank you.
Thank you. If I miss anything off, we'll come back. We'll come back to that, because I didn't get a chance to write them all down. However, the money that we had come forward was some additional money, like you said. So we'd already done some really good work in this space. So some of the questions or answers to what you'd raised is we set up some landlord forums and some tenant forums last year. So we've got a really good base where we know where those landlords are. They engaged really well. The tenants engaged with us really well. There were some educational pieces there. We've obviously got a variety of housing, different types of different ages of housing across the patch. It is an excuse me, it is an A1 fix for all of the properties. So the landlords were really grateful to have some help, advice, somewhere to go to get that. Equally, the tenants were really helpful to have that support network from the officers, what they provided in brokering those conversations with landlords as to what could be done in those properties. We held about 26 landlord training sessions. About 160,000 residents were reached in the course of that. We decided we'd take a proactive approach and upskill some of our officers with the initial funds that we've got for that. So we really did retain that legacy piece. Like you say, it's a real shame in 2025 we've got residents living in some of those conditions. But 22 officers we'd upskilled, and we carried out inspector surveys, improvement notices. Last year we served 26 improvement notices. But I think one thing which we must remember is that all of these things, they're directly affecting our people. It doesn't matter about numbers, shocking as they are. But if you can indulge me for just one moment, Chairman, we do have a case study from a family. It was a mother and her 3 children who'd lived in a home for 6 years, raising concerns around damp and mould directly with their landlords, who unfortunately just wasn't responding. They did seek support from the private sector housing team, who went out, they inspected the home. They did find that the indoor air quality was hazardous. There were services which were covered with mould, and the beddings, clothes, carpets, etc. did contain mould and spores. And albeit that there was some systems in the property, they were ineffective and not essentially working properly. So our officer served an improvement notice, giving them 3 months to carry out the damp survey, to install an improved extractor fan. This resulted in the landlord having to pay a financial penalty of £16,000. Thankfully, the family did find somewhere else to live, and the landlord is now carrying out the required works, and those works will be checked. But obviously, as you can tell, there's a lot of work goes into the back of where all these numbers are. So thank you for raising it. We will continue to bring it forward, and if I did miss anything, we will come back to you. Thank you.
Councillor Annie Blackburn.
Thank you. My question's just Councillor Sugget again, sorry. I understand that the move's being made to force a sale of the King's Head in Thetford, which has been an eyesore for many years. And it'd be great to have an update on that. But on the same subject, we've got two more pubs in the town, the Dolphin and the Bridge, that have also been boarded up for many years. Work has started and then it's left and it's just boarded up. Have we got to wait till they fall down, or can something be done in the same way as being done with the King's Head to enable something to be done? Especially that the bridge is, as you enter Thetford, it's right, you know, the first thing somebody sees when they come into the town. So it'd be great to know if something could be done about those as well. Thank you.
Like you said, it's a really long process with what we're in with the King's Head at the moment. But I will get an update and I will come back to you. I'm not aware of the other two, but I'm more than happy to come and see you. You explain to me, show me where they are. It may be that planning enforcement route is the appropriate route. It may be another one. So I'm happy to come and see you, and you can show me where they are, and we can see what we can do about those. Thank you.
Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, Chairman. Would the leader join me in congratulating the Wayland Partnership and Chamber, based in Watton, on signing an MOU with Zhivovka in Ukraine to promote cultural, business and friendship connections, and being the first area in Norfolk to sign such an agreement, following on from the County Council signing an MOU with the whole of the Lviv region last year?
Thanks, Chairman. I'm more than happy to congratulate all of those involved. For those, cast our minds back to history from post First World War and Second World War, twinning in partnership with those villages, towns and countries impacted by war is such an important part for them to have hope, but more importantly to rebuild those vital skills. So I know that they will go from strength to strength. I hope that other communities across Breckland and Norfolk consider this type of activity, twinning with those individuals impacted by the war in Ukraine. And I'm more than happy if there's any other support this district can provide to let us know. Thank you.
Councillor Land.
Do you agree with me that the Abbey Estate in Thetford have been poorly served in terms of maintenance and upkeep, leading to a managed decline of standards over years of stewardship by Flagship Housing?
Thanks, Councillor Land. And I know that when myself and the Deputy Chief Executive visited the Residents Association, we did a quick check against our housing team for the number of visits which we made. And I would say they weren't disproportionately any different from any others. However, I would acknowledge that when you and I sat with Flagship, that they presented their business model in which they had placed a lot of capital pause of any future improvements because they were looking at the future of the regeneration on that estate. If there are residents who are impacted today, as Councillor Suggett's already said, we have a really robust process in place. If there are residents who you want me to come and speak to and for them to show me firsthand the conditions they're living in, I'll be more than delighted to. I know that the local MP, Councillor Jeremy, is meeting with the director and the chairman of Flagship, if he hasn't already in the coming weeks, following the concerns he's raised. And I know that the residents are continuously feeding into his office to understand how they can shape the future of that scheme. And as I said previously before, I know that yourself and Councillor Brindle have been championing this day in, day out, and Councillor Atwell at the last meeting. From Breckland's perspective, we're still waiting for that planning application to go through, as you know. But those residents who are impacted, I would not want anybody, as Councillor Suggett said, to live in accommodation which isn't fit for purpose.
We have Councillor Cadell down on our list. Is there any other members that we've missed? Councillor Cadell, if you'd like to go next.
Thank you. I think this might be directed at Sam, the leader, please. Why is it taking so long to sort out the car parks with the market towns? And why is freehold such a problem? And can we at town council level have access to the asset lists for each individual market town? Our clerk in Watton has had not had a reply when she's asked for this asset list in the past. And we're very curious as to why the freehold is such an issue.
Lovely, thanks for the question. In relation to operational assets and land owned by the council, that's on our website. So if you go on to My Breckland, anybody can go in there and select the relevant overlays to show car parks, open spaces and bits of land we own. If you wish to understand what commercial assets we have, I'm more than happy to provide that to you. Councillor Hewitt recently attended the Overview Scrutiny, in which he talked through some of those commercial assets we have in the portfolio. In relation to car parking, you'll be aware that we made a decision to pause any activity because of local government reorganisation being announced. In relation to the market towns, the reason why we're looking at a sale provision now rather than a lease was because our preference was a lease. Our preference to get them out of the door as quickly as possible, to get into ownership of the town councils who rightly, on behalf of the residents, raised great concern in which they wanted ownership. That was the easiest model for us to undertake and achieve. You'll be aware that our team are ongoing that dialogue with all of our market towns, and Councillor Hunter-Clark asked the question back in March's or April's meeting. We're moving that forward. The challenge is if we do sale to those individuals across those market towns, we have a legal requirement to get the best value for those car parks, regardless of who they are, whether it's a town council or the county council. So we're just working through the legal requirements of how we achieve that, whilst ensuring the public aren't impacted by paying an inappropriate value for a piece of land, whilst we believe it's still in the public sector PLC's local government portfolio. We have got a handbrake on this. We are wanting to conclude all these conversations with our market towns by the autumn, because we need to focus on other bits of activity. So anything you can do as a town councillor to help us G these along at pace, I'd welcome. But as soon as we've got a further update, I know that Councillor Suggett and Councillor Hewitt will be more than happy to provide anything to you as a district town councillor or any other councillors across the patch.
Thank you. Councillor Anscombe.
Thank you, Chair. My question's been answered by Sam. It was about car parks.
Thank you. Councillor David Blackburn.
Thank you. Councillor Hewitt, I was told at the last meeting that I'd be sent a full breakdown of all the cost and expenditure regarding the purchase, sale, etc. of Barn and Broom Golf Club. This hasn't happened yet. And some further unverified allegations about costs have been circulating. Will I be sent the information in the near future, do you think?
By my records, you've been sent it, but I will follow up again with you. And I'm more than happy to talk it through. It's been subject to an FOI request in the past, and so the data is there, and it's very easy for you to see and look at. And in fact, I've got a copy of it if you want to see me after this meeting. Yeah.
Councillor Westman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it's Abbey Estate in particular, but also Thetford Priory Ward in general. My question for Councillor Crane in your capacity as Executive Member for Waste and Environmental Health, please. To do with fly tipping, could you please say how many incidents over the last couple of years, 2 years of fly tipping that there have been, and how long it took to clear them up? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. Funnily enough, I've been looking at this myself, and according to the government website, fly tipping incidents for Breckland for the year ending 2024 was 915, 501 on authority-owned land, 135 on highways, and 117 on agriculture, and I didn't list the smaller ones. The 2025 figures will be published in February 26. As you know, we've just done 3 very good fixed penalty notices for fly tipping in Thetford. I think our clear-up rate is pretty good. We do have to sometimes look for and find the owner of the land that can exacerbate the process. But our contractor circle, as you know, are very, very good at clearing up. But those are the figures I've got for you today.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions before I go back to Councillor Attewell? No? Councillor Attewell?
Thank you, Chairman. My next question is to Councillor Suggett, if I may, and it kind of does tie in with the Abbey estate. Can you provide me with an update on the running of the IDOCS planning system? You know, I've been very critical about the changeover from the old system. I still see a lot of problems with it in terms of the data that's been transferred from the old system to the new. In particular, I had a really good look the other day at the Abbey estate application, and I like to think I'm pretty good with planning, and I really struggle to navigate it. Residents will be totally lost with it. A lot of the information on there doesn't seem to have been transferred. In particular, I couldn't even find the comprehensive response that Thetford Town Council had put in on the transfer. And I know we've got that as a separate tab on the website for the Abbey estate. Could we please look to get that tidied up and make sure that all the documentation is listed, not just as a correspondence, it needs to say who it was from, because I think that would be much easier for the residents, please. And just a general update on, are we still working at pace to try and remedy the problems with the system? Thank you.
So working at pace to remedy the problems is something what the officers, everyone is doing. I haven't had quite so many comments and questions and moans and groans about it as what there was initially. I appreciate it isn't like the previous system. The previous system was much more pleasant to look at, user-friendly, etc. However, for the reasons what we've all spoke about before, we're where we're at with IDOCS. I will get an update to everybody as to where we are. It's been really helpful, all of the feedback that we have had, both from everybody in this room and residents and town parish councils that have been using the platform, because we see it in a different way to what the officers are loading it all in. So the historic entries, the historic applications, all of those things we will look to. They are being worked on, but I will get an update, come back to everybody. And like I said, if there is anything which you do notice as you're using the system, if you could still keep feeding that in, and that in any of our systems, it's always really helpful so that we could just make sure that everything is relevant that we're using and what we're expecting everybody else to use. But I will come back to you with a proper update.
Thank you. Councillor Hewitt.
Super quick, if I may, just following up on my comments, Councillor Blackburn, if you check your emails, Councillor, from the 4th of July, 11:57, you've got the response. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, we'll check the follow-up, but that was sent a week ago.
Thank you. Councillor Atwell, if no one else.
Just a quick question for Sam, if I may. I looked on the schedule of forthcoming meetings, and I was a bit concerned to note that we're not due to have another full council meeting for 3 months till the 9th of October. With what's going on with LGR, and I believe we've got to have some kind of submission for September, is it your intention to have a meeting in September? We don't normally meet in August, which is appreciated, but we do seem 3 months, doesn't seem like we've got an awful lot of council business going on to the outside world, and I wonder if you could comment on that, please.
I'll set them up, you knock them down, Roger. So we've got a date penciled in for Thursday the 18th of September for local government reorganisation full council agenda item. Dems are just working through with other authorities. The reason why it's come out is to make sure that we are trying to get some synergy, that we're taking all of our submissions within as close a period as possible of a couple of days. But just for everyone's diaries, Thursday the 18th of September is the proposed next full council meeting with the chairman's permission.
Wonderful. If there's no more questions, we're going to move on then to item 8. Motion received from Councillor Eagle, supported by Councillor Turner. Councillor Eagle, could you please give your reasoning behind the notice?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, would you and Council just allow me to make some minor amendments to my motion, please?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Rob.
I believe you mean minor alterations to your amendment. If you can lay out what the alterations are, Councillor, and then it's at the discretion and the consent of Council. So once you've highlighted the alterations, if you can pause, and I suggest, Chairman, we take a vote by show of hands of Council to ensure they consent with the alterations proposed.
Great.
Yeah, it only applies to the first paragraph. I would like to change it to reaffirm our support for George Freeman and Terry Jeremy, our MPs, and Norfolk County Council's position on solar farms, and change the other bit, delete Conservative-led, and said, and other Norfolk authorities. So I will delete, please, Conservative-led and replace Conservative-led with Norfolk authorities.
So,
hope that's acceptable to everyone.
can I ask the room, are everyone happy with that amendment to Councillor Eagle's motion? Agree? Any against? Any abstentions? Wonderful. Councillor Eagle, if you can carry on.
Thank you. I've brought this motion to council because Breckland is potentially going to be covered by a vast swathe of glass, and our residents are going to be subject to huge lorry movements over roads never designed for such purposes and with little care and thought. Highgrove will be the largest solar farm, and I hate to use that word farm, in the country, stretching from the other side of Swaffham on the Downham Market side, nearly into Dereham. And if you add the Drove Farm area as well, so that will bring those two areas to nearly 7,000 acres, and with all the ones already approved, such as Dunham and the smaller one at North Pickenham, and with the ones coming forward and battery storage. This will make this, by area, the largest power station in the country, probably in the world. And this will result in residents of those villages living within a power station. And we have no say of that. We are condemning them to this point. And we have no say, no point to them. And this is why I brought the motion, so we can all have our points and raise those points. If I come to it, the proposal has exaggerated now that we are going to have tracking panels at 4.5 metres high. For those of you older than me, that's just under 15 foot. And not only that, they are going to be erected on some of the land which is the highest area in Breckland. So they will be seen, covered at 15 foot. It's going to be impossible to put the trees to cover those areas to move. It is also, as just seen in the paper just recently, that high ground with increased change to climate and heavier rainfall, that is going to be increase the runoff, come down to areas such as Salem, where there is already money being spent on flood alleviation. That's going to invalidate that flood alleviation. I've seen it with ditches cleared in those areas recently and how much water is now coming through. All these problems come outside the area, so not their problem, leaving it and moving away. So when I wrote this, I could read it, and I should have become a doctor. Coming back to the 15-foot panels, anywhere else it would be a planning permission. In true Norfolk sense, even if you wanted to construct a shed for your dickie, you would have to come here and see the planning committee if you wanted a shed of that size. But this seems to be gone through, and RWE particularly have managed to circumvent our planning operation by conjoining all this swathe of area and their individual sites as one area. And then they only mention their area, although it's next door to the Drove Farm area of another 2,700 acres. So in total, we're going to have 7,000 acres covered, fenced and enclosed. So they can say there's wildlife, but there are certain species that are going to be excluded from those 7,000 acres. There will be wildlife corridors, but we already know there's a lot of deer. Anyone who's seen muntjac know what they do to a bottom of a hedge, which is probably the most important ecological part of a hedge. So they're going to be concentrated in one area. More problems for us and the benefit. We are lost and being stuck, and you can just go on to the flooding, the highways. I don't want to go on, and I could really talk, but I feel it's important that every other councillor here has their chance to say those points, and I'm going to pass it over to the rest of council because I feel I'd much rather hear your voices rather than just mine.
Thank you, Councillor Eagle. Councillor Turner, as the seconder to the proposal, would you like to speak now or last?
Last, please, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Then Councillor Borrett, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I absolutely support what Councillor Eagle has just said. I think the government here is sleepwalking us into a catastrophe for rural Norfolk. These vast solar installations, I won't call them farms because there's nothing agricultural about them. These vast solar installations are of such a size and scale, and with more proposals coming forward every day, that villages are going to be islands surrounded on all sides and in all directions by solar panels, and the impact that that's going to have on the landscape, the wildlife, the quality of life of our residents is going to be immense. Now, people say, and I agree with them, that we need to find alternatives to fossil fuels, but none of the power that's going to be generated by these solar installations is going to be available to be used by the residents of Norfolk. It is all going straight to London. And the reason that we know none of the power is going to be used by Norfolk residents is because it's going to be produced in such a form that it cannot be plugged into the local electricity network. It'll have to go down to London, where it will then be transformed into something, into electricity that can be then added into the grid and then serve people's homes. So we know that none of this power is going to be used here. So we're going to have all of the downside and not a single bit of benefit. The next thing is that the planning decisions for these huge solar farms aren't going to be made locally. They're going to be made in London, where the electricity is going to be used. So why wouldn't central London and the ministers keep approving these sites? Because there is no downside to them in London. Whereas here in Norfolk, we're going to get no benefit and all of the downsides. I think it's an absolute scandal that these applications are not to be determined locally, and that by amalgamating lots of different sites that don't physically touch each other together raises them to a point where Breckland is not allowed to have to decide them. And I think each individual physical site should be determined independently, just like it would be with most other normal planning applications, and be done here in Breckland by the planning committee, where local democracy can be seen to involve the residents of Norfolk. This is national policy, and the only way we're going to get any movement on this is outside the control of local government, is if our parliamentarians step up to the plate and make government listen. And I'm very glad to see that we mentioned by name our two MPs here, and I know firsthand the work that George Freeman has been doing in that campaign, and I hope that the MP for Thetford, Terry Jeremy, is going to be just as dynamic and involved as George Freeman has, because we will wake up one morning.
Councillor Borrett, if I can ask you to wind up, please.
We'll wake up I feel very passionate about this, I apologise, but we will wake up in a year and a half, 2 years' time, and the residents of Norfolk will be quite rightly asking us, how did you allow this to happen?
Thank you very much. Councillor Marion Chapman-Allen.
Thank you, Chairman. I congratulate Fabian on his proposal. I think I was correct in reading in the Eastern Daily Press in the last, Wobetide, I mentioned that word, in the last couple of days, because of the heat wave, solar farms and wind farms have actually been asked to turn off because they're generating too much electricity and there aren't the storage facilities. But on top of that, Chairman, Norfolk is the breadbasket of the country, and it's desperately sad to think of all that agricultural land being turned into solar, not producing food, which we will have to import because we're not growing it. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hunter-Clark.
Thank you again, Madam Chairman. I'm happy to support this on behalf of the Reform Group because we will stand up for the people of Norfolk, for our farmers, our food security and our countryside. Breckland is being carved up in the name of climate virtue signalling, and we will not sit back while our productive farmland is sacrificed for a misguided national energy policy. Here in Breckland and across wider Norfolk, we are facing a growing threat, the creeping industrialisation of our countryside through massive solar farm developments. Developers are targeting our productive farmland, not brownfield sites, not rooftops, but prime agricultural land that has sustained local families and supplied British food for generations. In our villages, in our wards, residents are increasingly alarmed by proposals that would see hundreds of acres of farmland blanketed in glass and steel. These are not community-led schemes. These are top-down speculative ventures, often backed by foreign capital, prioritising subsidies over sustainability. Reform UK supports energy independence, but not at the cost of our food security or our rural character. Solar power has a role, but that role must be balanced, it must be sensible, not sacrificial. They tell us there's a climate emergency. This council even signed up to that nonsense. Let me tell you what there is. There's a rural emergency. There is a farming crisis, there is a cost of living crisis, and there is a crisis of political will to stand up for common sense. It is therefore Breckland, in a way, that has welcomed these through its absurd policy. Councillor Eagle admitted to the Highgrove Solar Farm Opposition Group on the 3rd of June 2025, and I have the minutes here, sir, that one of the problems we have in fighting Highgrove and these projects is precisely because Breckland declared a climate emergency. You voted for it. Now faced with community backlash and the realisation that you are all going to lose your seats when the election comes, you are attempting to row back. Well, I'm afraid the damage is done. The public are not stupid. And let's also be honest about where this mess has come from. This policy started under the Conservatives, and now it's being carried out by Labour under Ed Miliband. And they don't get away with it either. A man who has never set foot in rural Norfolk, but seems happy to dictate how our land should be used. Two parties, one failed policy. No one is standing up for Breckland except Reform. You can't have it both ways. You can't say you support farmers and then take their land away. You can't say you want food security and then cover the fields with solar panels. Reform's position is clear. We oppose solar farms on productive farmland in Breckland and across rural Norfolk. We instruct the Chief Executive to write to the Secretary of State to say in no uncertain terms that Breckland will not be a dumping ground for failed national policy, and we call on this council to commit to fighting these schemes with everything at its disposal: planning powers, public consultation and the weight of local democracy. My message to the people of Breckland is simple. If you want to stop this madness, keep voting Reform and you'll get
Are we finished,
Reform.
Councillor
Thank you.
Clark?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for
Thank
indulging
you.
me.
I indulged you with a few extra seconds there, but it's nice to see you are supporting this motion. Councillor Land.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay. My machine appears to be not working so well. A few things to say. The first thing is I'm very pleased to see a partnership across the political divide who are actually most definitely standing up for Breckland. So I welcome MP Terry Jeremy and MP Freeman working I think it shows a real commitment to working for this district. In terms of food security, I think we need to look at which sort of land we're putting solar farms on. If it's high-grade agricultural land, then that's not the correct place. There is a lot of low-grade agricultural land that can be used, as well as the first recourse, which should be on the roofs of industrial and residential businesses. I think we all know that. And we do need cheap, clean energy. There's no getting around that. But my view would be that it can't be at any cost, and I would resist efforts to put solar farms on good quality agricultural land. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Land. Councillor Cowan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I would totally endorse everything that we've been saying so far in relation to this motion. And I think it's important for us to recognise that this country faces a number of security issues. And food security, without a shadow of a doubt, is one of the most significant. But it's closely followed, if not slightly behind, energy security. This government has made a number of fairly fundamental changes to how this country performs. So we decide we're not going to produce our own gas or oil reserves whilst we develop clean, green energy policies, but we'll rely on bringing them halfway around the world in tankers. This government has decided actually will take away from locals any democratic accountability, any democratic responsibility, any democratic knowledge, frankly, about what it means to destroy the countryside of this country and this part of the world in particular that we hold so dear. We've heard already from other speakers the impact that these solar installations will have on wildlife, on biodiversity, on the danger to the subsequent in generations to come, ability of that land to produce any future food production. But more importantly, we're actually destroying in this country the ability of this country to sustain itself in terms of food security. And we've heard how this part of the world is known as the breadbasket of the country. We see it today. On these wonderful summer days, you see the corn, you see the barley. It's actually ripening in the fields that are going to be covered by glass and steel installations. The lanes that we know and love will be destroyed by the traffic that's going to be needed to deliver the materials, the concrete, the steel, the other materials necessary to construct these installations. But we've heard about the 7,000 acres. And of course, we've also heard that the 7,000 acres isn't in one single section.
Councillor Cowan, are we nearly there, sweetie?
7,000 acres today will be 14,000 acres in a few years' time and 20,000 acres a little bit beyond that as the bits in between are filled in. We must support this motion, councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hewitt, 3 minutes, please.
I will be less than 3 minutes, but I'll bring it down to earth, please. This council is really proud to use silver spoon sugar. We've made it very clear that silver spoon sugar is a sugar that's derived from sugar beet and not sugar cane, and it is a locally produced sugar beet. And as such, by this council choosing to use silver spoon sugar, we support our farmers and we also support the biodiverse environment in which sugar beet is grown, which is a critical habitat for migrating birds. Both in terms of supporting our farmers and in supporting our environment, we look to make sure that our residents and our businesses can continue to thrive moving forwards. We've heard lots and lots of comments. All I will do in supporting this statement is say we should stand up against the destructive industrialisation of our countryside, the destruction of our county and the destruction of our rural communities. That is very, very important for us to do. We should stand up for the right actually to make planning decisions locally and to stand against the deliberate manipulation of a planning process by large organisations seeking to deny local voices. This motion is just a first step in making that stand, and I absolutely propose that everyone support it.
Thank you. Councillor Morton.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll keep it short. I just want to support this motion because I feel that one way or another, once our farmland, including around my ward in Swaffham, is lost to these solar farms, one way or another, once it's gone, it will be gone. And because we're not just risking the land, we're risking a generation of farming skills that won't come back even if the land does in decades to come. And many of our rural communities are built on food production and rural expertise. And I'll echo Councillor Land's comments that there absolutely is a place for solar. I know in Swaffham at the moment, the high school car park is having solar panels built on top of it. I live on a new development where every house has solar panels. But if we pursue it in this way that sacrifices farmers and food security, as Councillor Cowan set out, I feel the price is too high, and that's why I support this motion and the work of both of our MPs and other councils. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morton, for keeping it brief. Councillor Wilkerson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. 90% of my notes have already been raised, which is quite good, I guess. So I'll be very, very brief. I think if we don't support this motion, we are actually physically going against the wishes of our population. Right at the beginning of this process, we held a parish council meeting in Swaffham, which I attended, which was also attended, as it happens, by the leader of Norfolk County Council. And every single parish council was against this process. And I think if we were foolish enough, and I'm sorry to use that expression, foolish enough not to support this, we would actually be going against the wishes of the people that depend on us to make rational decisions. So that's everything else pretty much has been mentioned. And I would just finish by saying that I think the alternative is to try and influence our friends down in Westminster to provide individual financing for public and public properties. We put solar panels on our little 17th century cottage in Swaffham earlier this year. It's made a huge difference to us as individuals. And the more that we can actually try and convince Mr. Miliband and the rest of the people down there that this is wrong, this is a wrong way forward, and private or financing from central government for public and private properties should be their priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David Blackburn? No, you're fine. Thank you. Councillor Sarah Taylor.
Sorry, I was just, the cold is setting in. I think there's a huge amount of consensus in the room, which is really welcome. I did raise my eyebrows slightly regarding the second paragraph and the pressing for reforms, not least because the previous government amended the planning system 7 times in 10 years to put the voices of the public at its heart. But notwithstanding that relatively minor point, there's a lot in the motion to support. 2 observations. One is simply that with respect to the comments regarding food security, farmers and landowners in Norfolk are active participants in this. This isn't something that is happening to them, it's happening with them. So in addition to the motion as it stands, I would ask Councillor Eagle to consider perhaps a further alteration to resolve that the leader also write to the Farming Minister to press for support to farmers to strengthen farming in our area, as that would then potentially obviate the need for this, and lots of people have spoken about the need for that, and also to resolve to ensure that the councils, Breckland councils, participation in the DCO process is robust and that it persistently addresses the cumulative impact of these solar farms.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Are you proposing an amendment to this at this point?
If there's a way of asking Councillor Eagle if he would entertain a further alteration to smooth that along, then that would be helpful.
Apparently you need to propose that amendment and then we'll put it to the floor for support.
Sorry, point of order. Could Councillor Taylor just clarify exactly what the amendment is in words, and then I'll consider whether to second it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm happy to. I've got a ghost in the system on these. I'm happy to formally propose a further amendment to the motion as it stands, so that the motion further resolves that the leader write to the Farming Minister to press for support to farmers to strengthen farming in our area, and to further resolve that the councils, that Breckland councils' participation in the DCO process associated with these applications is robust and persistently addresses the cumulative impact. I've got it on a text message if that helps.
I think it'd be useful if you wouldn't mind saying it slightly slower so Teresa could capture it so all councillors fully understood the motion. So could we ask you to go once more slightly slower? If Teresa can capture it and then it's on the screen, then members know what they're considering.
Okay, speaking slowly, not my natural thing, so let's see how this goes. So in addition to the motion, so I'm not proposing any changes to the motion as it is there. I'd like to add to it. The motion further resolves that the leader write to the farming minister to press for support to our farmers to strengthen farming. I can't see, sorry. Do you want to just use that? I'll try and type it quickly. Yeah, yeah.
Councillor Taylor, can I just, I'm not sure if you can read the screen, but can I just check that reflects what you're proposing? And could you clarify what's meant by DCO? Sorry.
Sorry, so the development consent order process is the planning application process, which these applications are determined by. So the Town and Country Planning Act application process is brought to Breckland. They are using the DCO process, which is then determined by the Planning Inspectorate on behalf of the Secretary of State, which is what people have alluded to in the debate. If we could just add cumulative impacts of the solar farm applications, that makes it completely clear. But yes, that's exactly correct. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor, would you like the opportunity now to speak for your a seconder? Councillor Clark, you showed Hunter Clark,
I'm very happy to second that.
You are? So we have a proposer and a seconder.
So it's to Councillor
Would you
Taylor
like to speak on your amendment?
I've said enough. Thank you.
No, you've said enough. So then can we? Does Fabian have to second it?
Yes. No, he doesn't.
No.
Just to be clear, when an amendment's proposed, at the start there was an alteration to the original motion by the proposer of the motion. With the consent of council, he was able to do that. This is an amendment to the motion. So the motion's been proposed by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Hunter Clark. That now becomes the substantive motion for you to consider. So we now debate the amendment, take a vote on the amendment, and then, dependent on the outcome of that vote, we'll either revert to the substantive motion or amend the substantive motion. So it's now for Hunter Clark to decide whether he wants to speak next or at the end.
I'll reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
So do members have any questions on Councillor Taylor's addition? Councillor Wilkinson? Yeah.
I'd just like to know what Councillor Taylor would expect the outcome to come from the Minister when it's already been mentioned farmers are complicit with selling their land for solar farms, what can the government and what funds have they got to support farmers? Because that would come down to funding to help them with their failed crops and whatever they have. Because I think this year the crops are ripening quicker than the quality and the weight of the corn, for instance. So I don't know what we could achieve.
Councillor Bainbridge.
Thank you. No, I'm not at all certain that I could support this as an addition to the motion. I think it does change the direction and impetus of the motion against the government policy of building on our farmland. I mean, we have many other areas where we could put solar farms along our motorways, for instance, over our car parks, over buildings, has been suggested. And I think this rather dilutes the impetus that our MPs could have in presenting it to the Minister for Power, I think it's Mr. Miliband, and diverting it to the Minister for DEFRA. So I think it actually weakens the motion that we as a council were proposing rather than strengthening it.
Councillor Eagle.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to accept that. Just on the point following Councillor Taylor's putting the blame on the landowners. If we just take at the current moment, the barley being harvested you've seen, you are receiving £130 a tonne. You are lucky this year to get 2 tonne an acre. That's £260 after you've paid your combine fees, the sprays, everything else farmers. If you're a landowner, any of us here, whether you've got 5 or 10 acres around that area and you're being offered somewhere between £1,000 and £1,100 an acre, it makes no sense. So the farming minister or anyone there, what's he going to do? Bankrupt the country to come up and support that and put that level? They have taken, and the solar panel places have taken advantage of this situation and done it. It is not going to work. And again, when we have got people misguided and not fully understanding points in Westminster about grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 land, most of Breckland's most productive and useful land in food security for the UK is on our poorer land. 100 years ago, it was desolate waste. It was part of the thing. That sandy, light soil is used for our carrots, our parsnips and our potatoes with irrigation. So if we move from grade 1 to grade 3, no good. We've got someone not understanding that point. It's a waste of time. And all those carrots and parsnips will have to then come in from Spain and everywhere else, and we'll be back to square one again. So I'm afraid there is a point, but that's done. But when the farming minister has been twice to Norfolk now that I know of, avoided me and actually had his name on a table beside me at the farming conference and avoided me and came in at a back door not to speak to the farmers as well. And when we were again at the Norfolk Show, welcome, very glad he turned up and recognised that support for the Rural Business Awards, but then didn't want to have a conversation. I'm afraid conversations work both ways.
Thank you, Councillor Eagle. Are there anybody else, or is there anybody else that would like to speak on the added? Councillor Cowan?
I really have a fundamental problem with that second half of it, ensure the council's participation in development consent order. It's nothing to do with the council, I'm afraid. This is a government edict to actually take away from local people the ability to determine what happens in their local areas. I'm sorry, you know, any government who has that agenda is going to pay lip service to anything that might come from a local council. So no, I can't support this. I can't support it on the principle of local democratic accountability and responsibility in terms of planning alone, let alone those points that we've just heard from people who are much more familiar with the issues of farming in Norfolk. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor David Blackburn.
Hi, the way I'm reading this, I may misunderstand it, but to me that reads like my colleague is saying they want farmers to have more say in what they do. I can't understand how people can't read that, or I'm missing something completely. To me, that looks like we want the leader to write to the farming minister so that farmers have more support to strengthen farming. I must be missing something.
Councillor Borrett.
Thank you. I'd just like to support the proposer, the seconder of the motion, and say that the motion, we've got to keep it focused to deliver a clear and understandable message. And I think that the more that we add things onto it, the more complicated we're making it, and the more power we lose in the case that we're trying to make. This government is no fan of farms. You know, we've seen that with consistent announcements since the general election, attacking farming, which is a very, very low margin business, and putting extra taxes on around red diesel and all of the other associated costs, the cost of employing people. Most farming businesses work on a wafer-thin margin and are small businesses. And every decision that this government has made, I think that this is just a sop, and I think we should concentrate on the main part of the motion. And I think if the opposition was serious about amending this, I mean, this was published a week ago. To announce it 3/4 of the way through the debate in the meeting, instead of saying in advance we would like to amend this, then I think this is just trying to wreck what we're trying to do here. There was plenty of time to engage with the proposers and seconders before this meeting and try and garner consensus. So I will not be supporting the amendment.
Councillor Cogg.
I think it's a shame that that's the way this is being perceived, and I think that although there are written documents circulated, the purpose of having a meeting is to address things that come out of the meeting, and it's great to have that debate and hear from all sides. So I, as my colleagues have outlined, I'm confused about why the room would want to vote against the leader writing to the farming minister, and also ensure robust processes. And I don't believe it's been raised in the spirit of downgrading the other 4 points. And it's a fairly simple couple of points that I think would be greatly appreciated by our residents. So I will be supporting the amendment, and I hope that people do and don't make it the political issue that it seems to be coming to, because we just need to focus on the words on the page to get the best for our residents. Thank you.
Councillor Banbridge. No. Oh, you've already spoken on the addition.
We're not on the new one. Yeah.
So, Councillor Attwell.
I won't support this amendment because I do think there needs to be focus on the solar farm issue. However, I do happen to know that the leader has already written to local MPs about the future of farming, because I've seen his letter, and it was very comprehensive. And I would just ask Sam, rather than having this as an amendment, will you write to the farming minister anyway in your capacity as leader? You've already eloquently put quite a lot in writing about farming in Norfolk and your concerns about it. But you could write to the minister, copy in our MPs as just without having a motion through your office.
Thank you for the amendment, Councillor Taylor. I won't be supporting the amendment today. I have written to both the MPs across Breckland, Terry Jeremy and George Freeman. I'm meeting with the President of Norfolk NFU, and my follow-up actions following the meeting with the Chairman of the NFU for Norfolk is to then write to the Secretary of State at DEFRA to raise those concerns further, and therefore I think my actions to date and my subsequent actions following that meeting negate the requirements for us to add that within the motion today. And of course, as you can see within the text of paragraph 1, we will use all of our powers we have through the process to ensure we keep an active role. But I think, as the proposer has already mentioned, this is about us locally determining applications and them not being determined in SW1.
Councillor Taylor, not at this moment, sorry. Councillor Attewell, was that you making another, like proposing another amendment, or are you happy? Are you happy with Councillor Chapman-Allen's response to you?
Chairman, I'm losing the will to live, and I know most other people are in the room. I'd like to really move this forward and take the amendment to a vote. And I can say I have seen Councillor Sam Chapman-Allen's correspondence to the MPs, which I thought was very good. So I know he is on the case. He's already set out the measures that he's taken to engage with the farming community, and he's going to engage with the farming minister. So I'll leave it there. Please can we get to the vote, because at some point I'm going to want my tea tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor, can you just briefly let us know what it is that you wanted to say, so Rob can decide if you're allowed to at this point?
Yeah, happily. I understood that I wasn't allowed to ask questions in a debate, which is why I put it as an amendment. I'm happy to withdraw it, given the actions that the leader's done. Absolutely content with that.
Councillor Hunter-Clark.
Well, in the interests of you all wanting your lunch, yes, we'll withdraw.
Right then, so we'll just finish off the questions then on the original motion, and we'll go to Councillor Bainbridge, please.
In that case, Chairman, I think I already said everything I need to say.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wilkinson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to just mention on the first motion we're looking at, the parishes I look after in my ward, several of them are going to be covered on both sides by both companies coming in to put solar panels on, and they're very, very pleased to know that there is George Freeman and Terry Jeremy MPs for Norfolk holding these forums, because they feel they are the focal point to get the message back to government, rather than individual parishes having their own issues. They're bringing them together. That's what they feel. Land managers I've also spoken to in my ward as well are concerned what the solar farm companies are suggesting, i.e. Corridors for wildlife. That's corralling wild animals in, which won't happen. They're going to be shielded in some parts of my ward straight down onto the 1065, causing more accidents and whatever. And the Pedlar's Way and the Nar Valley Way is going to be affected as well. So when visitors are walking down the Pedlar's Way, for instance, they're going to have solar panels on each side of this walk. No, that's got to be protected as well. But we're pleased, they are pleased that the two MPs are working with local authorities to make sure government hear their voice, our voice.
Thank you. Councillor Askew, are you still wishing to speak?
The point's already been made, Madam Chairman, thank you, but I would say, could we go to the vote?
Once I've gone back to Councillor Turner, I think we can do that. Councillor Turner? Oh, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. You will be pleased that my little speech is very short.
Councillor Turner, sorry, Councillor Attewell actually hadn't spoken on the first motion, so we're just going to squeeze him in quickly.
Thank you. Yeah, a couple of points really. Just want to pick up on what Councillor Borrett said, because people around the room know my background is electrical engineering. So wherever you connect to the grid in this country, the power goes to all parts of the UK on something called the national grid. That's why it's called a grid. Just doesn't go doesn't go in a pipe down to London and you open a tap and help London residents. So that is quite important. There is significant problems and challenges with national grid. I think is one of the major failings of these proposals in terms of the connection points locally and where you're going to put the substation. And I understand that there's still significant problems and challenges with that. I welcome the fact that the two MPs are working very closely on this. I know Terry Jeremy has written to the Chief Executive of RWE as well, outlining his concerns, particularly about the use of the arable land, the grade 1 and grade 2. I'm pleased that they've been having the forums. I know you had the meeting together at Ash Hill, Homehale some weeks ago, which I think was very well attended. And the other thing I just want to say, really, to be honest, I was a bit taken aback by Councillor Hunter-Clark's comments about virtue signalling of this council. I think all grown-up people around the room will realise the fact that we do need to have green, clean energy. We cannot rely on fossil fuels indefinitely. There has to be something done to generate cleaner power. That's just not this proposal on this scale. There are other ways of achieving that with rooftop solar panels. We've got more offshore wind we can do. The nuclear option, the government's now looking at putting in additional nuclear power. So there's lots of things we can do. We're not virtue signalling in this room when we declared a climate emergency. Many people in the room, like myself, have got grandchildren. I have to think about their future. No, it's not rubbish, and I defy you to come up with any science to say that climate change isn't real. We do have a significant problem. We are taking a very grown-up approach. It has been cross-party. It was discussed at great length, and I'm just sorry that you've come up with those comments today. I thought you were better than that. That sounds like a comment that the owner of Reform, sorry, checks notes, the leader of Reform would say. Not something that needs to be said in this chamber. So please, can you refrain from that in future? Thank you.
Right. Moving swift. Is he in now?
He can, if it's a way of personal explanation or a point
Yeah,
of order.
that's okay. Councillor Borrett hasn't actually spoke on the first.
Thank
Oh,
you.
he
Just
has,
just
yeah,
a point of
Yeah, he did.
personal information in response to what Councillor Attewell has said. It is called National Grid, but the power does not move freely around. The reason that a lot of these solar farms are in the bits of Norfolk that they are is because new pylons are being built from London all across Essex and Suffolk to Norfolk
Councillor
to take this power away. And large areas of Norfolk, there is not enough power, and that's why some businesses cannot
Thank
set
you,
up
Councillor Borrett. We're going to move back on to Councillor Turner. My colleagues either side of me are indicating that that's where we need to go. Councillor Turner, as the seconder of this motion, would you like to speak now?
I'd be privileged to speak, Chairman. I'm delighted to second the motion that is before you as you now see it written. You've heard the proposal and the passionate comments from members in the chamber, so I'm not going to repeat what my colleagues have already said. The motion asks for a fair, strategic and locally accountable approach to renewable energy within our county that respects and continues the beauty, value and economic importance of Breckland and Norfolk. 11% of food production in the UK comes from Norfolk and Suffolk. Norfolk Tourism last year brought in £3.4 billion. We have innovative agricultural schemes in our county, supported by one of the leading science parks in Europe. We have triple SSIs. We have water meadows, chalk streams, flora and fauna that must be protected. We have people, land, businesses and tourism that must be protected. We must have balance between the now and the future, between the rural character of our region and the need for new energy sources that will positively benefit our communities for generations to come. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Turner.
Chairman, if there's a request for a recorded vote, it needs to be 12 councillors in support plus the person, the councillor who's originally asking it. So we would need 12 other councillors to agree to that.
Can we please have a show of hands for those that would agree to that? Teresa, you can have a quick count. I think we've got 12, haven't we?
Recorded vote.
We'll move to a recorded vote. Can we? Yeah. Do you want me to ask for those in agreement?
No, because she'll do it. So it's... Are you ready, Teresa?
So if we could now move to the vote for the motion, in favour?
Or against?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go for it, Teresa.
Okay, thank you. So I'll call the roll call. So Councillor Anscombe, Councillor Ashby, Councillor Askew. Councillor Atterwill. Councillor Bambridge. Councillor Bate. Councillor Annie Blackburn. Councillor David Blackburn. Councillor Borrett. Councillor Bowes. Councillor Brindle. Councillor Marion Chapman-Allen. Councillor Sam Chapman-Allen. Councillor Clark. Councillor Clausen. Councillor Cogman. Councillor Cowan. Councillor Crane. Councillor Eagle. Councillor Fraser. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Hewitt. Councillor Hunter-Clark. Councillor Hussey. Councillor Cadell. Councillor Kiddle-Morris. Councillor Kybird. He's not here, sorry. Councillor Land. Councillor Monument is not here. Councillor Morton. Councillor Nunn. Sorry, 4. Councillor O'Callaghan. Councillor Richmond. Councillor Suggett. Councillor Samantha Taylor. Councillor Sarah Taylor. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Turner. Councillor Westman. Councillor Wickerson. Councillor Wilkinson. Lovely, thank you.
Can we get Councillor Kybird back?
If you'd like to nip outside and get him, Gordon, by all means, stick your head out the door and get him. Yeah, that's okay. Fabian's going to do it for you. Right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. That was unanimous, and it's lovely to see that after so much debate, we can put our political views aside and all vote unanimously on such an important issue for our residents. So we will move swiftly on, she says, to item 9, which is minutes for information only. Does anybody have... Where are we going? See, look, the discussion's gone so far, I've took my glasses off and now we go. So a member of the council may ask the leader, cabinet member or chairman of the committee or panel any question without notice about the content of the reports or any questions on accuracy of the minutes under consideration by the council. If members have any questions, please raise your hands. And we'll start with cabinet on the 23rd of June. Any? No? Okay then. General Purposes Committee on the 15th of May. Governance and Audit Committee on the 19th of June. Licensing Committee on the 4th of June. Committee of the Licensing Authority also on the 4th of June. Overview and Scrutiny on the 15th of May. Overview and Scrutiny Commission on the 5th of June. Planning Committee on the 13th of May. Planning Committee on the 10th of June. No questions? Everyone's happy? Wonderful. We'll move on then to item 10, which is Dereham Conservation Area Appraisal and District-Wide Shopfront Design Guide. Councillor Sarah Suggett.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to present to you today the refreshed Dereham Conservation Area Appraisal and the District-Wide Shopfront Design Guide. Back in March, we sought Cabinet's approval to commence public consultation of the 2 documents. The consultation process is now concluded, and we are pleased to present today the 2 documents recommended for approval and formal adoption as planning policy. The Dereham Conservation Area has been updated to reflect changes in the town's built environment, heritage value and conservation needs. Building on similar work in Thetford and Swaffham, it also delivers on priorities in the Dereham Town Delivery Plan and our future Breckland programme. The Shopfront Design Guide, developed for the entire district, supports the preservation and enhancement of historic shopfronts in all market towns. It offers practical advice for businesses, developers and planners to create high-quality, historically sensitive designs that enhance local character. The funding for both pieces of work was secured following a successful bid to Historic England, along with funds from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. Both documents are part of a wider effort to protect the heritage of our market towns and helping our high streets thrive. By preserving their historic charm, we aim to make these areas more attractive and successful for residents, businesses and visitors. The recommendations are: 1, that Council approves the reviewed Dereham Conservation Area appraisal and its use as an adopted planning document following the publication of the revised designation and notification to the Secretary of State for Media, Culture, Sports in accordance with S70 of the Planning, Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act 1990. And 2, that Council approves a district-wide shopfront design guide and its use as an adopted planning document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Suggett. Can I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor Borrett. Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Chair. With members' permission, I would like to read out a statement from Councillor Alison Webb, who has played a full role in getting these two documents to their current position and status that they are at the moment. And she's asked whether I can read out a statement at full council today. Councillor Webb says, I am disappointed and saddened not to be able to attend full council today to express my grateful thanks to all who contributed to the Dereham Conservation Area Appraisal and district-wide shopfront guide. The Dereham Conservation Area Appraisal was definitely in need of a refresh, as the last time it had been reviewed was in 1973 in a wider conservation areas document. The review has been well supported and commented on both online and through various meetings, such as the Dereham Action Partnership meeting, and all of these comments have been reviewed and included within this final version, and I'm fully supportive of the changes and pass my thanks to all those who contributed. And I say this is a statement made by Councillor Alison Webb. Thank you.
Any further questions? No. Okay, thank you. Can we then move to the vote? All in favour? Anyone against? And any abstentions? No, unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 11, Mattershall Neighbourhood Plan Review. Again, Councillor Suggett.
Thank you, Chair. And just to save time, we only discussed this a few weeks ago at Cabinet, but the Mattershall Neighbourhood Plan was first made in 2017, and the Parish Council has now successfully updated and reviewed this plan, and it is the first parish within Breckland to have successfully done so. As with the original plan, the review has been subject to formal public consultation, followed by an independent examination and referendum. Like I said, we discussed this at Cabinet a few weeks ago. So the recommendation to Council today is to amend the district policies map to meet the requirements of paragraph 9 Town and Country Local Plan in England's Regulation 2012. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Could I please have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Goodall-Morris. And then can we have any questions? None? Fabulous. Can we then please move to the vote? All in favour? And there was no one against and no abstentions? Lovely, unanimous again. Oh, we're moving quickly now. And then we'll go to item 12, 24-25 Finance Report. Councillor Cowan.
Thank you, Chairman. And apologies for those who may have heard some of this before, because this has been to Cabinet and it now moves, as you can see from the recommendations, to us here at full council. At the start of the year, Council agrees the budget for the coming 12 months, and on a quarterly basis we report the actual progress against our anticipated budget. This year has been challenging, and you'll no doubt recall that in quarters 1 to 3, I've been reporting that what was tracking as a worsening position. In other words, we were projecting a shortfall in our budget position compared with that which was anticipated when the draft proposals were prepared in the latter part of 2023, ahead of the formal budget setting in 2024 February. You'll also no doubt recall that during the year, as we progress through the agreed programme of works and services, the budget versus actual position tightens. And I'm here today to report that the financial report for the year ended 31st of March 2025 shows a positive outcome as shown in Appendix A, and the detail is discussed in Table 2 to that appendix. The papers also show that we have overachieved Table 3, our anticipated progress against the efficiency targets. In Appendix A on Section 2, progress is identified against the approved capital spend for the year and shows that this council achieved a spend of 46% against that which was budgeted, and the variations to that spend, the carryovers, are identified in Table 2. Section 3 of Appendix A shows our treasury position, and you'll note that as a result of prudent fiscal management, the yield on investments has outpaced our budget projections, and this has enabled us to support other local authorities, as shown in the counterparty pie chart. As a consequence, we have a proposed revised capital budget and associated funding for 2025-2026 capital programme, and details are identified in Appendix B. The papers before you today, as I said, have been presented to and discussed by Cabinet, who agreed to the following resolution. The recommendation to full council that 1, the revised capital budget and associated funding for 2025 to 2026 capital programme, as detailed in Appendix B, is approved, and that the final capital outturn and funding for 2024-2025, as detailed in Appendix C, be approved. I move those, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Oh, no, we had the second. Councillor Attewell.
Thank you, Phil, for the report. Could I just have 3 clarifications, please? I don't know whether you can answer the first one. That might be the leader, but I'll come to you first. In terms of, I'm looking at Appendix A, in terms of the Thetford Plan for Neighbourhoods, you've only got 360,000 earmarked in 26-27, which is a considerably lower figure than every year going forward that's considerably higher. Is that because we don't have any shovel-ready projects, or is it that the government is only releasing the money at that pace? That's my first question. The second one is, could you just clarify for me and probably some of the newer members in the room what the Swaffham new build project is? Because we've got 1,093,000 odd pounds here earmarked for that. And also the LabV loans of 2,373,000. Can you expand on this? And is there any effect, because I believe we're pausing the Breckland Bridge project. I've seen something that we're not doing much with that now going forward. Does that have an effect on that? So there's those 3 items that I'd like some clarification on, please.
I'll deal with the third one first, and I cannot answer that question for you, as I am a director of Breckland Bridge. So I'm going to pass that down to my colleague at the far end of the table. And I will also do the same with the Swaffham project, because he can give you chapter and verse on that one. And I will defer to Sam as the leader on the first point. Thank you.
Thanks. So in relation to the Thetford neighbourhoods, it is the government's timetable for drawdown for both revenue and capital, and that's just a requirement that's set out by MHCLG.
Councillor, in relation to the Swaffham build, this is in relation to a project that was stalled a couple of years ago in relation to Turbine Way, and we are now ready to progress on that project moving forwards. In relation to your comment about Breckland Bridge, I gave a report to overview scrutiny. I'm happy to talk to you in terms of exactly where we sit on the budget position for Breckland Bridge moving forwards. But you are right, in the light of LGR, when one of the parties to the joint venture will disappear, we've had to reassess all of the work in relation to Breckland Bridge moving forwards.
Sorry, what is this?
Turbine Way.
Yeah, what is it?
It's the acquisition and fit out of an industrial unit.
Any more questions? Judy?
My question was about the Swaffham build as well. Just some clarification from Phil. On the capital programme, I think it's paragraph 1.3. This was on the first version of the agenda, so it might be a different page number now. The leisure provision for Swaffham, which is what we're talking about here, which was ring-fenced from the Green Britain Centre sale, it states £700,000 to be carried forward. But the figure, as Councillor Attwell read out as well, the revised capital on page 277 for the Swaffham new build was 109,265. I just want a clarification on the difference in the figures, please.
Judy, if you're happy, I'll get that written response to you to clarify that.
No? Okay, if that's everything, then we'll move to the vote. Yeah, Mark seconded it. Yeah, Mark seconded it. If we move to the...
I think that was proceeding.
Okay, then can we have a seconder for this proposal, please? Robert, Bill. Yeah, thank you. Can we move to the vote then? And all in favour? Unanimous. So we'll just, I don't have to ask the others, do I? As it's unanimous. So, right then, fabulous. We'll move on to budget amendments. And again, Councillor Cowan, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And colleagues, this is a bit of an unusual event for us. At this stage in our fiscal year, amending a budget that we agreed in February. But we find ourselves in somewhat uncharted waters as a result of the proposed changes to the structure of local government. The background to the paper before us sets out the detail that has led Team Breckland to prepare the budget amendments that we have before us today. It's worth reminding ourselves at this stage that Breckland Council enjoys an enviable reputation for providing high-quality services and support to our residents and businesses whilst charging the lowest district council tax. It is with that same philosophy that underpins all that we have achieved in the past 25 years that we're approaching the change that central government are imposing on us all. Thus, as a departure from my usual presentation technique, and I do apologise for this, I believe it's imperative to quote from the paper before us to reinforce our aims and objectives at this time. So Breckland has identified several key priorities: protecting the residents and businesses, making sure they continue to experience the best possible support and services now and into the future. Supporting staff and service continuity, ensuring that business as usual is not compromised through a period of change, and ensure that Breckland staff are as well placed to succeed in transition as possible. Enabling new unitaries to have the best chance of success, collaborating with other Norfolk districts on the most compelling case possible, and ensuring a strong financial legacy from Breckland Council. And avoiding waste and maximising efficiency, avoid making decisions and investments which could be abortive or costly. So the paper before us today identifies the changes proposed in the capital and revenue budget streams, where we are proposing a methodology that will help to ensure that the residents and businesses in Breckland who will become part of a larger and more complex unitary authority will enjoy the benefit of the key priorities that we're now setting, and that we can provide stability and certainty over available resources in the countdown to April 2028. Thus, having discussed and debated this topic at Cabinet, I can confirm that Cabinet has agreed to recommend to full Council that the revised capital programme at Appendix A be approved, that the revenue budget amendments and associated funding at Appendix B be approved, that the permanent establishment of the authority be increased by 10 full-time equivalents, and that the Thetford Plan for Neighbourhoods funding and spend is included in the amended capital and revenue budgets as detailed in Appendix C. I move that amendment, that proposal.
Thank you. Can I please have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Conrad. Thank you. All in favour? Oh, any questions? Sorry, look, I'm jumping the gun. It's nearly 12 o'clock. No questions? All in favour? And we're unanimous again. Look at us all getting along today. And then item 14, Treasury Management Outturn. Councillor Cowan again.
Yes, I'm ever so glad we're all still here to hear this one. This is it's exceptional as normal. I don't propose to debate this in any great length of time myself. This is a statutory document that we're required to prepare each year. It's actually handed down to us effectively from Governance and Audit Committee, and it's a legislative requirement that we actually identify all of the individual items within it to demonstrate that we know what we're doing, in essence, and are running a good financial authority. A couple of things just to draw your attention to. One is that interest rates have held up significantly through the year and are projected so to do in the future as well, which is good news. And you can see that our interest rates in this country compared with the Eurozone are much higher. As a consequence, that gives us additional resource to do things for our residences and businesses. It also means that our investment portfolio is very well positioned. And as you can see from the pie chart, which shows our counterparty exposure, in the past, we've had to look significantly far and wide in order to secure best value for our investments. But in this case, you can see that £20 million of our investments are held by local authorities in this country. It's all down to good fiscal management, I have to say, but it's also down to what I suppose my colleague at the far right there would say it's the luck of the draw when it comes to financial matters. Investments for us are in a good place. So with that in mind, we have a recommendation before us. He says when you can get the screen to move. There are two of them. That the actual 2024 Prudential and Treasury indicators within this report are approved. And secondly, that the Treasury Management Annual Report for year 2024 to 25 at Appendix A is also approved. Now, if there are any difficult questions which I'm unable to answer, we have our Section 151 officer who will be able to respond in detail. Failing that, if anyone has questions that require written response, we will be able to provide those as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. So are there any questions at this moment in time? We had a proposer, Robert, wasn't it? Oh, seconder. We did, it was Robert. I think that was me and Maxine are losing track. Robert, are you happy to second it again then? Well done. Any questions? No? Let's all move to a vote then. All in favour? And we're unanimous again. Wonderful. Right then, item 15. Protocol for the chairman and vice chairman of council and committees. And we're going to hand over to Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. The Vice Chairman of the Council plays a vital civic and ambassadorial role, supported by the Vice Chairman, while Chairmen of the committees have a central function in facilitating effective governance and decision-making. In recent years, expectations of these roles have evolved, requiring a clearer definition of responsibilities, behaviour standards and civic event protocols. This protocol has been developed to consolidate existing guidance, constitutional provisions, notably Article 5 of the Constitution, and best practice from National Association of Civic Authorities and Local Government Association recommendations. The protocol was discussed at Governance and Audit in June this year, where suggested amendments were made to the document and then unanimously agreed to recommend the document to full council. The recommendation is therefore that the protocol for the role of chairman and vice chairman of the council or committees be adopted as part of the Constitution and included as part of the Constitution within Part 5, Codes and Protocols. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So for this one, I need a proposer and a seconder. Councillor Attewell and Councillor Wilkinson. Are there any questions? No? Okay, then swiftly to a vote. All in favour? Unanimous again. Excellent. Moving on, item 16, political balance. Teresa.
Thank you, Chairman. So the report before you today is regarding the allocation of committee seats in accordance with the Local Government Committees and Political Groups Regulations 1990. So when a councillor joins a new group, we're legally required to review it and, if necessary, update seat allocations across the committees to reflect that new political balance. Following the recalculations, there's been the following change. So the Independent and Green Group will lose 1 seat on each of the Licensing Committee and Committee of the Licensing Authority. And the Reform UK Group will gain 1 seat, which is currently unallocated. To maintain political balance, full committee membership and to comply with legislation, the options are outlined within section 1.9 of the report. It should be noted that there are no changes to the Conservative Group, Labour Group or those non-aligned. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Teresa. Can I please have a proposer and a seconder for that amendment? No, you want to make an amendment? Councillor Attewell.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the report, Teresa and Rob. I know there's been a lot of musical chairs in the last couple of months, and it's been quite difficult to keep up with that, so thank you for that. On behalf of my Independent and Green Group, we'd like to relinquish the seat on licensing, and we would like to propose that that seat is allocated to Councillor Judy Anscombe, who's a non-aligned independent councillor. She's extremely diligent, I think would work very well on licensing. So I would really like it if somebody would second that, and hopefully we could take that to a vote if Judy is willing to do it.
Councillor Hunter-Clark.
I'm very happy to agree to that. Obviously, we've already discussed that, but I don't feel as though that has to be part of this report. Surely that's us gifting the seat that we're entitled to Councillor Anscombe outside of this report, if that makes sense. I don't think it has to be agreed in the report, does it?
Councillor, it can be included under this item, item 16, or the following item under 17. I think is within your gift as the two leaders of the two parties elected to choose how you allocate your seat or relinquish your seats on a basis to somebody who's not aligned. So I'm comfortable it's either done under this item or the subsequent item. It's for you to recommend.
So, Councillor Hunter-Clark, are you going to support Councillor Attewell doing it here?
I just think we don't need to formally do it in this report. We can do it under the next item.
Councillor Attewell, are you happy to do it under item 17, nominations for committees? Right then, can I have a proposer and a seconder for the political balance report? Councillor Wickerson and Councillor Cogburn. Can we please have a show of hands for all in favour? And we're unanimous again. Lovely. Item 17, nominations for committees and other seats. Councillor Suggett.
Thank you, Chair. Can I please remove Councillor Paul Plummer and Councillor Gordon Bambridge off of overview and scrutiny? Move William Richmond from being a substitute on overview and scrutiny to be a full member, and put Councillor Linda Monument and Councillor Marion Chapman-Allen as substitutes on overview and scrutiny. And on planning committee, could I please swap Councillor Samantha Taylor from a substitute to a full member and Councillor Paul Plummer to a substitute? And also the Norfolk Playing Fields Committee no longer exists. So would like to remove our representative of that as, and for that to no longer be an outside body. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cogman. Councillor Attewell.
Okay, this might be just a point of order and clarification, but I believe at this point I'm only supposed to speak about nominations or changes to my group. So there are no changes to my group as I understand it now, Rob. Just nod because I really can't get into a debate about this. But obviously we need to have a mechanism here. Can I propose Councillor Anscombe at this point, or do we have to do that after Councillor Hunter-Clark has spoken? You know, can we just clarify this and move it on?
Rob.
Just to clarify the situation for all members, there is a seat to be allocated by the Independent Green Group, a seat to be allocated by the Reform Group. The two vacancies are on the Licensing Committee and the Committee of the Licence Authority. Usually those two seats go together with the same member and the same party. Clearly that's not possible in this situation because there's one vacant, one seat each held by both. So if we can just check that Councillor Atwell and Councillor Hunter-Clark are both happy that they relinquish their individual seats on the two licensing committees, and they're happy for Councillor Anscombe to take those seats as a non-aligned member, then we're good to go.
Councillor Hunter-Clark, are you happy with that?
I'm very happy. In the interest of good governance, that's why we agreed this. All right.
Wonderful. So we'll move on if that's okay. Yeah. Right then. Amendments to the Constitution, if any, there are none. There are none. And I have nothing that I feel is urgent, so there are none. So I'm going to close the meeting. Look at that, and we went all for all unanimous.
Before you all go, now the meeting's finished, you will have seen the posters all around. This is an opportunity for your residents to get involved in local government reorganisation. What they
Just shout was training.